Chapter 299. The performance of Yang Chen had always been in the eyes of the host of the auction house. The host's room was the control center of the entire auction house. Here, he could not only clearly understand the bidding situation of all the auction items, but also know every room he wanted to know. When Yang Chen paid the spirit stones for the sky-measuring ruler, what he took out at the beginning was not a scattered gene of high-grade spirit stones, but a very bright top-grade spirit stone. Then he put it back and took out a pile of scattered spirit stones to pay off. This situation had already fallen into the eyes of the host and several other auction houses. And every time Yang Chen always bid, this also fully showed that Yang Chen needed something. After a few rounds of auctions, the impression of a newcomer with a low cultivation base and inexperience but a huge amount of money was successfully imprinted in the eyes of several auction houses. Next to the host, there was a young man who looked very handsome. Like the host, his eyes had been staring at Yang Chen's movements on the wall. The finale of the auction was the horn of an unknown demonic beast. This horn was very sharp and had the water attribute. After the infusion of spiritual power, even an ordinary flying sword could not withstand a stab and would be immediately pierced. The material was very hard. Fire, water, and flying swords could not even leave a mark on it. However, even the appraiser of the auction house could not tell clearly what kind of monster this horn belonged to. The world was too big. In the 100,000 mountains alone, there were no less than tens of millions of creatures living. Even if the appraiser was knowledgeable, it was impossible to know everything. The only thing that was certain was that this was the horn of a monster at least at the peak of the Yuaning stage, or even higher. It was unknown why it fell off and was obtained by someone. Because the owner could not refine it himself, he could only send it to the auction for spirit stones. Nevertheless, the characteristics of this horn had attracted the attention of many people. The horn was about 2 feet long and was naturally pointed. It did not need to be polished to look like a good flying sword. If the sacrificial refining was successful, it would be a flying sword of a high grade. In the live demonstration, a demon beast at the peak of the gold core realm stretched out his arm, and the beast horn fell 3 feet above his arm without any force. The gold core realm demonic beast's arm was easily pierced by the beast horn, but the beast horn was not damaged in the slightest. The golden core realm beast cultivator was a beast cultivator who often appeared in the demon flame valley. His true form was a thick-skinned rhinoceros with thick skin and flesh. Even a demon cultivator like him was pierced by the beast horn so easily, which indirectly showed how sharp the beast horn was. Subsequently, the flying sword was used to hack at the beast horn, and flames were used to burn it, but none of them were able to damage it at all. Everything proved how powerful this beast horn was. Of course, the auction had clearly stated that if one's cultivation was insufficient, then there was no need to consider it. However, who didn't wish to have a powerful magic weapon? As for the lack of cultivation, no one was born with a high cultivation. At most, he would buy it first and then refine it when his cultivation was high enough. All the previous auction items, the base price was between a few caddies to dozens of caddies of mid-grade spirit stones, which was hundreds of caddies to thousands of caddies of low-grade spirit stones. As soon as this beast horn came out, the base price was 1 caddy of upper-grade spirit stones, which was the same as the base price of the sky-measuring ruler. 2 caddies. Yang Chen quoted his price almost at the moment when the host quoted the base price. He forcibly increased the price by 1-fold. 2.5 caddies. 3 caddies. 5 caddies. 6 caddies. 6.5 caddies. 7 caddies. 7.5 caddies. 8 caddies. 9 caddies. 9 caddies. 9.5 caddies. 9.5 caddies. 9.5 caddies. 9.5 caddies. 10 caddies. The masters who had been waiting for a long time also began to move. Soon, the price of the beast horn had risen to 10 kilograms of high-grade spirit stones. In the 100,000 mountains, even if it was a nascent soul realm master, it was not easy to take out 10 caddies of upper-grade spirit stones, unless it was the strength of the sect. The further it went, the fewer people raised the price, and each increase became 1 or 2 caddies. Even so, everyone had to think about it several times before increasing the price. If it was not for the fact that each increase must not be less than 1 or 2 upper-grade spirit stones, the buyers even wanted to use money or such units to bid. One had to know that even if it was 1 caddy of upper-grade spirit stones, it meant 1 caddy of mid-grade spirit stones. The atmosphere of the auction was getting more and more heated, and it was not known how many buyers in the room were cursing. If it was not for the fact that no one knew who was bidding, and that the auction house was strictly forbidden to make trouble, maybe someone would have rushed to the bidder and fought. Xianxia also did not expect that this finale item would have such a surprise. Others could not recognize it, but Xianxia could clearly distinguish that it was clearly a qilin horn. Ordinary qilin horns were shaped like deer antlers. This one was not a natural qilin horn, but after the qilin fell off, it happened to fall in a turbulent whirlpool, and after thousands of years of erosion, it formed such a shape. The reason why it had the attribute of 9th water, it was estimated that it was because of the erosion of the 9th water for many years that it was contaminated. Such a thing, if he did not encounter it, it would be fine. Since he encountered it, how could Xianxia let it fall into the hands of others? Seeing that the group of people gradually stopped after the bid reached 10 caddies of upper-grade spirit stones, the host had already begun to call 10 caddies for the second time, and Xianxia held the bidding stone and bid again. 11 caddies. 11 caddies of upper-grade spirit stones, is there a higher bid? Seeing this new bid, the host was excited on the spot. The increase of 1 caddy of spirit stones had already made the host feel that there was no suspense, but Xianxia suddenly made a move and added 1 caddy. How could it not make people excited? He is a junior in the early stage of the foundation stage. There is no way for him to sacrificial refine it. What is he buying it for? The chic young man next to the auction house host frowned, looking at Xianxia's easy bid, and could not help but ask. It is not too late to sacrificial refine it one day. The host smiled. This kind of question was really too childish, but he had to answer the young man's identity, so he could only perfunctorily say, or he knows some special sacrificial refining method, maybe he can sacrificial refine it. He is young, but his family is rich. The young man stared at Xianxia on the screen, and said thoughtfully, "Young master, our auction house cannot break the rules, otherwise there will be no place for us in the 100,000 mountains." The host knew what the young man was thinking, and hurriedly reminded him. "Don't worry, I know what to do." The corner of the young man's mouth showed a sneer, staring at Xianxia displayed on the wall, and slowly said, Chapter 300. An unknown beast horn, although sharp and of good material, was not enough for the people of the 100,000 mountains to pay more than 10 kilograms of upper-grade spirit stones. Almost all the cultivators who came here wanted to break through the realm, and a few came to find materials, but no one would pay for something that could not be sacrificially refined and that they did not know. After Xianxia bid 11 kilograms of upper-grade spirit stones, the host was silent and waited for the buyers to take action. However, after waiting for a while, no one made a bid that exceeded this price. 11 kilograms, is there a higher bid? 11 kilograms going twice. The host announced the price of 11 kilograms again, but there was still silence waiting for him. Suddenly, the host's face was stunned, as if he had seen something incredible, and then he shouted excitedly, 15 kilograms. 15 kilograms. Is there a higher bid? The sudden increase of 4 kilograms caused an uproar in the entire auction house. 4 kilograms down, that was 40,000 kilograms of lower-grade spirit stones. If used to absorb spiritual power, it was almost enough for a Jedon stage master to use from the early Jedon stage to the peak Jedon stage. This increase was 4 kilograms, who was so generous? Young master, this? Without paying attention, the young master next to the host directly added 15 kilograms of upper-grade spirit stones, which shocked the host. Even if the previous auction things added up, it was only this number of spirit stones. If Xianxia gave up, the auction house would lose a lot this time. I want to know what this is. The young master stared at the picture of Xianxia's room on the wall and said nervously. There was a trace of jealousy on his face. Doesn't he have a piece of the best spirit stone? Is he afraid that he can't pay the bill? With his identity as the young master, It was impossible to take out 10 kilograms of upper-grade spirit stones casually, but Yang Chen, a junior in the foundation stage, could easily take out a piece of the best spirit stone. How could this not make the young master crazy? Our appraisers said that the most expensive thing for this thing will not exceed 12 kilograms of upper-grade spirit stones. The host was a little annoyed, but he was the young master, and he was just a shopkeeper. The difference in identity was too great, and there was no way to criticize the young master's behavior. He could only say the highest evaluation. The moment young master opened his mouth, he started to regret it. Why couldn't he help but want to make things difficult for Yang Chen? Perhaps it was because seeing him casually take out the best quality spirit stones made him feel ashamed of his inferiority. He was a dignified young master, but he had to live a frugal life every day, while the other was strolling around with a top-grade spirit stone. It seemed that it was just pocket money. This strong contrast almost made the young master die of shame. But now, he couldn't help but feel nervous. If Yang Chen didn't want it, he wouldn't be able to compensate him with so many spirit stones. 20 Jin. Before the host could call for the second time, Yang Chen had already called out a new price without hesitation. It directly doubled the price of 5 caddies that everyone had stopped at just now. Boom. This time, it was no longer just exclamations of surprise. Everyone in the auction hall was shocked. Who would be so generous to spend so much money on a beast horn that no one knew how to refine? Could this be some kind of peerless treasure? Everyone was asking around, but the eyes of the auction hall's host had already lit up. Yang Chen had only really bid twice. The first time was for the sky-measuring ruler, which was bought for 1 caddy of top-grade spirit stones. This time, it was even more generous, for 10 caddy of top-grade spirit stones. Both times he spent a lot of money. He didn't know what to do or how to do it. Everything about Yang Chen was full of mysteries. Also, Yang Chen was young, and his cultivation was low. Where did he get that top-grade spirit stone? All of these seemed to have infinite attraction, which made the host pay attention to Yang Chen. The young master didn't dare to accept it again. If it really fell into his hands, it would not be worth it. Moreover, he had already made up his mind to find out the secret of the beast horn through other channels. If it was really a peerless treasure, the beast horn would still return to his hands. Young master, no matter what you are planning, you must be careful when you do things. The host also stared at Yang Chen's figure, but he said, "Don't let anyone know that you did it. We can't break the rules." "I know." When the young master heard the price of 10 caddy, he let out a long sigh of relief. Now the host was still so childish, how could he not think of it? After replying impatiently, he immediately got up and went out to call a servant. After giving a few instructions, he came in and sat down. "I have arranged people to keep an eye on it. They will not make a move within 100 miles of Magic Flame Valley." The young master came in and said softly, but it was to reassure the host. When the host heard the young master's words, he didn't have any reaction. He just sat quietly, neither objecting nor disagreeing, as if he didn't hear anything. But the young master knew that this was his attitude. He didn't care about this matter anymore. No one competed with Yang Chen for the price of 10 caddy of top-grade spirit stones. The Qilin horn smoothly fell into the hands of Yang Chen. When he thought that he actually bought a genuine Qilin horn for a mere 10 caddy of top-grade spirit stones, Yang Chen didn't know whether he should feel lucky or happy. In short, there was a feeling of being hit by a big meat pie from the sky. 21 caddy of top-grade spirit stones was already the biggest sum of money in this auction. Yang Chen believed that he must have attracted the attention of the auction house. Next, Yang Chen sat on the fishing platform, waiting for someone to snatch it. Yang Chen wasn't sure if someone would make a move, but from the moment he left the auction house, he found that someone had begun to follow him from afar. It was reasonable to say that Yang Chen wore a cloak of invisibility and looked the same as everyone else, and others couldn't distinguish which was Yang Chen. However, Yang Chen still noticed the feeling of being stared at. Thinking about it, there was only one reason that could explain it, and that was, there was a problem with the invisibility cloak provided by the auction house on his body. Those people could recognize him through this cloak. Yang Chen, who got the things in his hand, did not stay in the Magic Flame Valley. Like most of the cultivators who got the treasures, he directly went out of the magic flame valley, then set up his flying sword and quickly left. After Yang Chen's figure flew for more than 10 miles, a group of people followed behind him. The leader was holding a compass and excitedly followed the direction in which Yang Chen had left and chased after him. No one noticed that Yang Chen, who seemed to be running away quickly, had a trace of a sneer on his face. Chapter 301. Yang Chen, who seemed to be running away, changed his speed a few times, but no matter if he slowed down or sped up, the people behind him didn't seem to plan to make a move near Magic Flame Valley. After discovering this, Yang Chen also began to leisurely slow down. Of course, at this moment, no one would notice a small snake leaving Yang Chen's body and entering the mountain forest. After a while, another small scorpion also silently left, disappearing into the boundless forest. Seeing that they were about 200 miles away from Magic Flame Valley, Yang Chen keenly sensed that the people behind him seemed to have quickened their pace. When a group of more than 10 people appeared in front of Yang Chen, they were stunned to find that Yang Chen was sitting comfortably on a rock. Behind him, there was a veiled woman who was diligently massaging Yang Chen's shoulders. She didn't even raise her head to look at them. More than a dozen people stopped their flying swords. They seemed to be messy, but they were scattered in a hidden direction, surrounding Yang Chen in the middle in a half-moon shape. There was one more woman. Looking at her cultivation, she seemed to be at the middle gold core stage, which didn't match the situation they had before. However, they had more than 10 people on their side, and the weakest one was at the late gold core stage, so it shouldn't be a problem. This group of people had done this many times. Originally, they thought that 1 or 2 people would be enough to chase after a little guy at the early foundation establishment stage, but to be safe, the young masters still sent everyone out. There didn't seem to be any problems, but Yang Chen's confident attitude made people feel somewhat bewildered. Although the dozen or so people surrounded Yang Chen, they were somewhat apprehensive and no one stepped forward. Dao Ba didn't come? The first to speak was Yang Chen, who was sitting there waiting for the group. Looking over, the Dao Ba that the spider spirit mentioned was not among them. Yang Chen couldn't be sure whether these people were from Howie Manor or not, so he tried to trick them. There's no need for Senior Blade Scar to deal with a junior like you. Perhaps it was because he was used to being a tyrant here, or perhaps it was a habit, but the leader did not intend to hide anything at all and admitted it generously. All right, as long as you admit it. When Yang Chen heard this, he sneered and asked, "Everyone, what rules do you want? Just say it. You're a straightforward person, so we won't beat around the bush." The leader had never seen such a calm junior. He was a little nervous, but thinking of the absolute advantage on his side, he was not afraid that Yang Chen would play any tricks. "Hand over all your belongings and tell us the purpose of the 2 things you bought at the auction today, and we can let you live." In the eyes of the leader, these words were simply nonsense. How could they let Yang Chen leave alive? However, even if it was easy to snatch spirit stones, it would be troublesome to find out the origins of the 2 items in the auction house. It would be best if they could trick him out of it. If not, they could only capture him first and then torture him. Sure enough, the auction house also has a copy. Yang Chen seemed to have verified a lot of things with a few words, and he no longer pretended to be courteous to these people. As soon as Yang Chen spoke, the leader seemed to notice that the current atmosphere was not right, but he could not figure out where the problem was. Turning his head to look around, several of his companions behind him signaled to him that there was no ambush around. However, Yang Chen's fearless look made the leader unable to get over it. Brush, within a range, suddenly there were 4 more women wearing the same veil as the woman behind Yang Chen. The women behind Yang Chen also stood up, and 5 flying swords began to fly around their bodies. Attack! The 4 women appeared silently, which surprised the leader. He no longer cared about probing and directly ordered them to attack. Everyone was on guard. When the leader gave an order, more than a dozen people immediately attacked the surrounding women. In their minds, 16 against 5, and it was 16 Jit on stage and Peak Jit on stage against 5 Jit on stage. The result of this battle was simply obvious. But when they started, they found that it was not the case at all. The 5 women each occupied a position, advancing and retreating, which was obviously a brilliant array. 5 against 16, but they did not fall into a disadvantage at all. They even vaguely surrounded the 16 people in the middle, and they were evenly matched. Yang Chen was still sitting on the rock, looking coldly at the battle in front of him, without saying a word. A group of people wanted to attack Yang Chen, but they couldn't spare a hand for a while. No one discovered that on the ground in this area, there was a layer of blood-colored vines. During the fighting and moving of the people, a faint red mist, which was almost invisible, filled the battlefield silently. Everyone in the fight soon found that their spiritual power had begun to not listen to them. Under the shock, when they wanted to escape, it was too late. A large piece of red vines directly wrapped all of them, including the 5 women. Woven into an impenetrable net, everyone was entangled in an instant. However, the blood phantom vine seemed to have a mind of its own, bypassing the 5 women, just touching them gently and immediately dispersing. Others were not so lucky. The blood-colored vines almost wrapped the whole body and began to root wildly. The excruciating pain caused 16 people to scream crazily. The 5 women didn't seem to hear it, and still put on a defensive posture, surrounding Yang Chen and a group of people who had been wrapped in the blood phantom vine. 16 people were lined up by the blood phantom vine, and their blood was sucked dry, and they collapsed in front of Yang Chen. Yang Chen stared at them as if he was staring at a pile of lifeless scum. I really want to know, 2 months ago, did Knife Scar and your young master sneak attack a woman who bought the Red Sun Iron Soul? As soon as he spoke, Yang Chen went straight to the point, without beating around the bush. Falling into your hands, you can kill or cut, you can do whatever you want. A guy looked tough and shouted loudly, "You want us to betray the young master, don't even think about it." "As you wish." Yang Chen gently snapped his fingers, and the swearing guy was immediately entangled by the blood phantom vine and thrown to the front. In front of everyone's eyes, accompanied by his screams, he became a dry corpse. A group of people looked at each other, but no one dared to speak. They didn't know what kind of ability the young master had. When so many people faced the threat of death, no one gave the confession that Yang Chen wanted. "It seems that I am late." Just as Yang Chen planned to interrogate them one by one, a voice sounded in everyone's ears. Chapter 302. Hearing this voice, the group of people lying on the ground were all overjoyed. Yang Chen's eyes also turned in the direction of the voice. In the mountain forest over there, all the plants seemed to be pushed away by an invisible big hand, and they were separated to both sides. A sturdy figure, like a leisurely stroll, walked slowly towards this side. "Hey, a bunch of waste." Looking at the dozen Jedon stage masters lying on the ground entangled by the blood phantom vine, he snorted coldly, "If it weren't for the caution of the young master, you would have missed the young master's big event today." Even if they were threatened by the blood phantom vine, these Jedon stage masters seemed to just scream in pain, but did not show a look of fear. As soon as this person appeared, their faces showed fear. Yang Chen stared coldly at the man who appeared, and his eyes focused on the long scar on his face from the left corner of his eye to the right corner of his mouth. Looking at the figure coming step by step, Yang Chen gritted his teeth and asked, "Knife Scar? Junior, I heard that you want to find me?" Knife Scar, who came over, did not deny his identity at all, and the scar on his face had already explained everything. "What do you want to know? I will fulfill your wish before I die." "So, these people are useless." Yang Chen's eyes never left the figure of Knife Scar, and with a move of his mind, the blood phantom vine began to crazily suck the dozens of guys entangled. "Senior Knife Scar, help! Help!" The screams were accompanied by a cry for help, but Knife Scar had no intention of saving people. He looked coldly at the people who were screaming under the havoc of the blood phantom vine. He just snorted coldly, "Screw up the things of the young master, damn it. Even if you don't kill them, I will kill them. You save me a lot of trouble." After saying this to Yang Chen, Knife Scar held his hands and watched the blood of his companions, who should have been his companions, being sucked up by the blood phantom vine, but he was indifferent. A blood-colored vine rolled toward Knife Scar, but Knife Scar's body did not move, and suddenly a flame armor appeared on his body. As soon as the vine touched it, it immediately shrank back as if it had met its nemesis. No matter what, it belonged to the wood element. Encountering a fire that could restrain the wood element, it had no choice but to retreat. Good stuff. Xianxia praised. This flame armor was definitely good stuff. From the raging flames on it, it could be seen that this was a protective magic treasure that had fused with the Nanmingli fire. Not only could it defend itself, but the flames of the Nanmingli fire on the armor could also be used to attack enemies. It was indeed a good magic treasure with both offensive and defensive capabilities. Just this magic treasure alone was much more powerful than the magic treasures and flying swords of everyone present added together. Even if Xianxia was included, none of the Dharma treasures that he could bring out could be on the same level as Knife Scar's Nanmingli fire armor. It was not that they had not been upgraded to high quality, they were still in the raw material stage, or they were not offensive or defensive Dharma treasures at all. Putting everything else aside, just the Nanmingli fire seed that was integrated into the armor was enough to compete with the true sunfire. And from this magic weapon, Xianxia immediately judged that the knife scar in front of him was definitely not at the peak of the gold core realm as he had heard from the spider spirit. Nascent soul realm? Xianxia's gaze turned cold. This was the first nascent soul realm master that Xianxia had seen since he came to the 100,000 Mountains. This guy had actually succeeded in making almost everyone who knew him think that he was at the peak of the gold core realm. He was really cunning. It was not too difficult to conceal one's cultivation, but now that Knife Scar had actually revealed the Nanmingli fire armor, he presumably did not intend to let Xianxia leave alive. What surprised Xianxia was that the spider spirit said that he had seen Knife Scar attack his master with his own eyes. But with Knife Scar's current cultivation, it was impossible for his master to escape from Knife Scar's hands. What was going on? With your foundation establishment realm cultivation and knowledge, your eyesight is not bad. Knife Scar did not make a move directly. He still looked at Xianxia with his arms crossed, and even praised Xianxia, so that Xianxia did not know his intentions. 2 months ago, you took people to attack a woman who bought the Red Sun Iron Soul? In any case, Xianxia must find out who did it. Not to mention that Knife Scar was only in the nascent soul realm. Even if he was a master of the Dashang stage, as long as Xianxia confirmed it, he would fight for justice for his master even if he had to give up his life source magic weapon. A little girl from the Chunyang Palace. What's her relationship with you? Knife Scar raised his eyebrows, as if he did not expect Xianxia to ask about this. But he did not deny it, nor did he conceal it. Instead, he admitted it openly. He even knew that Gao Yu was from the Chunyang Palace. I am Xianxia. The woman you are chasing is my master. Before Xianxia came to the 100,000 Mountains, he had already hidden all the things that could prove his identity. In addition, Xianxia cultivated the Yin-Yang 5 Elements secret art. It was impossible for others to see his sect from his cultivation. Since the other party admitted it generously, Xianxia did not hide it. However, at this moment, Xianxia did not seem to have such an unforgettable hatred for Knife Scar. Instead, it was replaced by a kind of gratitude. With the cultivation shown by Knife Scar at the moment, not to mention that Gao Yu was only in the early Jidan stage, even if Gao Yu was in the peak Jidan stage, plus there was a life-saving magic weapon in her hand, it was impossible to escape the pursuit of Knife Scar. If Knife Scar wanted Gao Yu to die, since Gao Yu could still live, it meant that the other party was merciful. Thinking of this, Xianxia couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. If Gao Yu didn't meet Knife Scar, and he didn't show mercy, wouldn't Gao Yu cause a fatal disaster because she wanted to refine the flying sword for Xianxia? This was something that Xianxia would never want to see. Oh, after beating the big one, the small one came? Knife Scar seemed to be very surprised, especially when he found that Xianxia was really only in the early foundation establishment stage. He was even more surprised. But it seems that you are much more powerful than your master. At least your master can't beat so many people. I am indebted to you for showing mercy to my master. I am very grateful. Xianxia solemnly cupped his fists and said to Knife Scar, Well said. If you can take things, try not to kill people. You don't have to be particularly grateful. Knife Scar waved his hand and didn't take it seriously. You are the same. Today I am in a good mood. You solved a pile of garbage for me. So, as long as you tell me what the two things you auctioned are, what is their use, and then hand over the spirit stones and things, I will spare your life. You hurt my master. If you want things, you have to fight first. Xianxia didn't mean to give up. With a move of his mind, the 5 women had already rushed up and surrounded Knife Scar in the middle. 5 flying swords flew up and down and launched an attack. Chapter 303. Sword Formation. Knife Scar reacted at a glance. The 5 women advanced and retreated in an orderly manner and cooperated skillfully. It was clearly a brilliant formation. Those guys were not unjustly defeated. But Knife Scar did not put it in his eyes. Being able to subdue a few Jedon stage masters was not necessarily able to compete with a Yuanying stage ancestor. Knife Scar was convinced of this. In the face of the 5 women's attack, Knife Scar did not even release his flying sword. He just clenched his huge fist and launched the Nanmingli fire armor to protect his body and trembled with the 5 women. It had to be said that the power of the 5-way fairy formation was extraordinary. Even if it was only 5 masters in the middle Jedon stage, after cooperating with each other, they could compete with more than a dozen opponents in the peak Jedon stage. However, in the face of a fierce opponent like Knife Scar, it seemed that the sword formation of the 5 women was not enough. Under the attack of Knife Scar's fist, the circle of the 5 women was getting bigger and bigger. Not to mention surrounding Knife Scar, it was already very hard to keep from being injured under Knife Scar's fist at the moment. Knife Scar's fist was very accurate, and each punch hit the flying sword that was attacking. The power of each punch could make the owner of the flying sword tremble. If it weren't for the 5-way fairy formation, the 5 women would advance and retreat together, and all the attacks would be shared equally by the 5 people. If it was one person, they would have already been injured by the sword. Ants are ants. No matter how many ants form a sword formation, they are still ants. Knife Scar threw dozens of punches in a row, and the 5 women's sword formation was expanded several times. Knife Scar was excited, and after laughing for a while, he drove the sword formation and walked towards Xianxia. Alone against the 5-way fairy formation, and without the flying sword, Knife Scar had at least the cultivation of the middle Yuanying stage. Xianxia was also secretly happy in his heart. If the cultivation of the 5 women was a little higher, and each of them was in the peak Jedon stage, it would not be so easy for Knife Scar to be so relaxed. Xianxia couldn't help but complain about Wan Qian, who had become an idiot. Wan Qian is really bad at teaching. For such a long time, I don't know how many people's things have been stolen, but she only brought her disciple to the middle Jedon stage. However, when Knife Scar walked over, Xianxia was not afraid at all. He stared at Knife Scar's face and suddenly made a hand gesture. If a few little girls can't do it, how about adding me? Shikue's rough voice sounded from behind Knife Scar. Dao Ba was shocked. Someone had silently appeared behind him, and he didn't even know. How was this possible? He turned around abruptly and saw Shikue's huge fist coming at him. Boom, boom, boom. The fists of Shikue and Dao Ba continuously collided against each other, creating a soul-stirring sound. Shikue's true form was that of a 1,000-meter-long viper. He had a huge body and boundless strength. When he met Dao Ba's fists, he was not at a disadvantage at all. The two of them began to exchange fists within the Pentacloud Fairy formation. The 5 women finally did not have to directly face the tyrannical power of Knife Scar. 5 flying swords were quickly released and they began to attack around Knife Scar's figure. Although Knife Scar had the Nanmingli fire armor to protect his body, he did not want to rely on the armor to protect his body. Every time the flying sword was about to reach his body, Knife Scar would still separate a punch and hit the flying sword. However, he had no extra power to attack the 5 women, and he was about to face Shikue's next fist. The 2 Yuanying stage masters and the Pentacloud Fairy formation were entangled, but the surrounding mountains and forests suffered. The sword formation of the 5 women was originally known for its speed. It only took a while to spread out the formation, and the trees and rocks that might block their bodies had been cut into pieces by their swords. After a while, the area had become barren. Shikuei and Knife Scar, the explosion of spiritual power when they exchanged fists made the entire ground seem to have been ravaged by thunder. There were pits everywhere, and it was horrible to look at. It was strange to say that the methods of the Yuanying stage masters were unknown, but Knife Scar actually accompanied Shikuei to exchange fists here. Shikuei was reluctant to take it out because his fangs had not yet been refined into a magic weapon, but what was the reason for Knife Scar? However, Knife Scar alone against Shikuei and the 5 women, but he did not fall into a disadvantageous position. This has fully explained that Shikuei's cultivation base was not as good as Knife Scar. Shikuei was furious, he roared again and again, and the 5th Earth True Essence began to be launched. With a punch, even if Knife Scar's body was covered with the Nanmingli fire armor, he did not dare to take it head-on, and he retreated again and again. After retreating a few steps in succession, Knife Scar also showed his fierceness. His face changed, and the overwhelming pressure suddenly covered everyone. In his expectation, Yang Chen should be unconscious immediately, and the 5 women would not be able to play the role of the sword formation normally because they were suppressed, and he could deal with Shikuei alone. What Knife Scar did not expect was that Yang Chen was still sitting far away on the other side of the mountain rock, watching the battle 100 feet away, as if nothing had happened. Even the speed of the 5 women's formation did not slow down at all, and they were still attacking fiercely. No matter how hard Knife Scar thought about it, he couldn't figure out why. Since when could the pressure of a Yuanying stage ancestor be ignored by a few juniors in the middle Jidan stage and the juniors in the early Foundation establishment stage? Knife Scar, who was really angry, finally brought out his real skills, at least in Yang Chen's view. In the previous attacks, Knife Scar did not carry a murderous aura, but now he made a move, but with a hint of ruthlessness, he wanted to kill the opponent. Whoosh! A pale red flying sword flew out of Knife Scar's body and instantly blocked the sword formation of the 5 women. Subsequently, on Knife Scar's fist, a spirit light began to condense and collided with Shikuei's 5th Earth True Essence on the opposite side. With each punch, the ground under the feet of the 2 people sank a little, as if being pounded by a huge hammer. The figures of the 2 people were getting faster and faster, turning into 2 streams of light. The 5-direction fairy formations seemed to be unable to trap the 2 people. Good, I haven't had such a good fight for a long time. Knife Scar's voice came from the break in the fierce fight, and it seemed to have a hint of hearty joy. However, you are not my opponent, and these little girls are not my opponents. How about adding me? Outside the circle, suddenly there was a strange voice, which made Knife Scar suddenly nervous again. When did the Yuanying stage masters also appear in pairs? Or was he supporting this junior in the foundation stage? Chunyang Palace was not so powerful, right? What was more terrifying was that this master actually appeared silently, and no one knew where he was before. Xianxia appeared directly in her original form. Although the huge sand scorpion was not a few hundred feet in size, it was also a few feet in radius. After becoming smaller, the sand scorpion's carapace seemed to be a bit stronger. The huge claws were unreasonably cut directly at Knife Scar's waist, and the poisonous stinger on the tail was like a sharp blade, stabbing straight at Knife Scar. Chapter 304. Another nascent soul stage monster? Scar was taken aback. Just now when Shikuei used his human form to fight with him, he could still gain the upper hand because Shikuei did not have a powerful magic weapon for the time being. But now that Xianxia had restored his original form, he used his advantage to the fullest, and Scar immediately felt the pressure. The carapace on Xianxia's body was strengthened by the 5th Earth True Essence. Even if Scar's flying sword slashed on it, it could only leave a white mark and could not penetrate it at all. For a time, there was a clanking sound, but it was Scar's flying sword that slashed dozens of times on Xianxia's body, but it could do nothing to Xianxia's strong shell. In addition to being able to block Xianxia's attack, it could not hurt Xianxia at all. There was also Shikuei who kept bombarding on the side. As a last resort, Scar was also forced to show his true skills. The Nanmingli fire armor shone brightly, quickly forming several flame swords around Scar's body, and began to fight back frantically. With the fifth Earth True Essence protection, the flames of the Nanmingli fire couldn't hurt Xianxia and Shikuei, but the two of them couldn't get any advantage. In particular, Scar's several flame swords also seemed to be a sword array, flying up and directly enveloping the two of them. Shikuei shouted and also showed his original form. It was also a condensed figure, a huge viper with a length of more than 10 feet. It rushed to Scar with its sharp fangs and rushed up. In this way, Xianxia and Shikuei's combat effectiveness almost doubled. They had only been in human form for a short time, and they couldn't exert their full combat effectiveness in the state of human form. Changing back to their original form, relying on the instinct of thousands of years, they immediately reversed some of the decline. At this moment, the 5 women could no longer intervene in the battle circle. Even if the spiritual power that escaped from the battle of the 3 nascent soul stage masters was enough to hurt the 5 women. Under the control of Yang Chen, the 5 women had already stood beside Yang Chen, vigilantly observing the surroundings. Scar was getting more and more energetic. The 8 flame swords flew up and down around his body, blocking all the attacks of Xianxia and Shikuei while also counterattacking. Another flying sword was like a poisonous snake, flying behind the two of them, waiting for an opportunity to attack. Even in a 1 versus 2 situation, Scar did not show any signs of losing. Such a powerful strength made Yang Chen very puzzled. Could it be that he didn't want to kill after robbing, so he let his master go? With the strength shown by Knife Scar, he could kill Gao Yu on the spot with just 1 blow. This Dao Ba must be someone with a story. Yang Chen came to this conclusion. Then, with a thought, Wan Qian disappeared from the domed hall without anyone noticing and appeared above the battle circle of the 3. Then, without saying a word, he controlled the flying sword to slash at Scar's head. In the midst of the fight, a killing intent descended from the sky. Scar instantly sensed danger. His flying sword met the attack head-on. Only after blocking the attack did he have the leisure to observe who was above him. Another Yuanying stage master? Knife Scar had begun to be shocked. When did the Yuanying stage masters of the 100,000 mountains become so worthless? They actually formed a group to support a junior in the foundation establishment stage? At the moment when he saw Wan Qian's figure, Knife Scar had already determined that Wan Qian and Yang Chen were in the same group. Wan Qian's dress was exactly the same as the women around Yang Chen. The same dress, the same black veil covering her face, the only difference was her cultivation base. Wan Qian was also in the middle stage of the Yuanying stage. As soon as Wan Qian appeared, the scene suddenly changed. Yang Chen couldn't fully control Wan Qian, so he could only use simple hypnosis. Under the direct order, Wan Qian did not care about her own safety at all. She attacked with all her strength, with a desperate posture. Shikuei and Xianxia also realized that Wan Qian was their helper, so the two of them used their huge bodies to block the attack on Wan Qian, so that Wan Qian could attack with all her strength. Although the 3 of them had not cooperated much, at this moment, their cooperation was seamless. In the face of such a difficult opponent, Knife Scar's true strength finally showed. With a loud roar, a few formation flags suddenly spread out from his body and quickly fell to the ground. As soon as the formation flags fell to the ground, the entire space was filled with a thick smoke, enveloping everyone's figure in it. His eyes couldn't see anything, and even his spiritual awareness was somewhat affected. These formation flags were simply used to block the feeling. As soon as the formation came out, Shikuei, Xianxia, and Wan Qian's offensive immediately slowed down. At the same time, he controlled 9 flying swords, a sword formation, a single flying sword, and also controlled the formation flags, plus he was fighting against 3 Yuanying stage masters at the same time, but he did not fall. Knife Scar's cultivation base, at this time in the eyes of Yang Chen, had risen to the late Yuanying stage. Yang Chen was thinking about how to communicate with this Knife Scar, but one of the spiritual awareness threads scattered around was slightly shocked, and he noticed a strange spiritual awareness. Who was it? He was actually spying with his spiritual awareness not far away. Yang Chen was shocked, and he could no longer pay attention to the battle in the middle. A trace of spiritual awareness followed the strange spiritual awareness and traced back to the owner of the spiritual awareness. The spiritual awareness was extremely subtle. If it wasn't for Yang Chen's cultivation of the three purities secret art, it would be impossible to detect it. And this was because the other party may have some fluctuations because of the formation flags or the fierce battle, so it was discovered by Yang Chen. Before, Yang Chen didn't notice it at all. The divine sense came from a big tree a few thousand feet away. It was unknown how many years this huge osmanthus tree had lived in the 100,000 mountain range. It was thick enough for several people to wrap their arms around it, but its crown was not high. Looking from above, it was not eye-catching at all. If it wasn't for Yang Chen's spiritual awareness, it would be impossible to discover the thickness of the osmanthus tree. When ordinary people's spiritual awareness swept over, they would definitely think that this was just an ordinary forest. This was a osmanthus tree demon. It was a plant, and it was born with the ability to hide its aura. It was even better than the viper. It was normal that others couldn't find it. Yang Chen's heart moved, and the beast controlling secret art was directly launched. When the spiritual awareness and the other party's spiritual awareness touched, a thought passed over, "Senior, are we hindering Senior?" The osmanthus tree demon seemed to be very surprised, but it immediately returned to normal. A powerful spiritual awareness directly merged with the spiritual awareness sent by Yang Chen, and then flashed away, leaving only a trace of Yang Chen's spiritual awareness. "Little calf, interesting, how did you transform into a human form?" "Senior, this junior has a transformation secret art. I can do it after cultivating it." The spiritual awareness was sent out. Yang Chen didn't even mention the conditions and directly sent the transformation secret art over. "Since you call me senior, it's not good for this old man to take your things for free." The osmanthus tree demon accepted it directly, and then sent a thought, "How about this old man help you take down your opponent?" Chapter 305. How about it? Of course, Yang Chen was happy, but he still felt that there was something hidden in it and couldn't help but remind, "The armor on that person's body has Nanmingli fire, you have to be careful, I want him alive." "No problem." The osmanthus tree monster immediately agreed, and at the same time ordered, "Tell the girl with the metal attribute to get out of the way." This request was a bit inexplicable, but Yang Chen did not hesitate, and directly issued an order. Wan Qian immediately flew out of the battle group, and without thinking about it, she flew directly to Yang Chen's side. Before she reached Yang Chen's side, she seemed to have touched the dome of the medicine garden and entered the hall alone. The remaining three people in the battle group did not know why Yang Chen would call back the master Wan Qian, but at the moment everyone was fighting fiercely, and no one would care. The momentum of the battle of the four Yuanying stage masters had already alarmed the surrounding hundreds of miles. But no one dared to come over to see what was going on, for fear of getting into trouble. They just looked at the movement here from a distance of hundreds of miles, guessing what had happened. The people of the Magic Flame Valley also discovered the crazy atmosphere here, and everyone had a serious face. The battle was so close to the Magic Flame Valley, and it was still at this level. At a glance, it was obvious that there were several masters of the Yuanying stage. What happened that made them so angry? While the people in the distance were guessing, Yang Chen was also guessing what method the osmanthus tree monster was going to use to deal with Knife Scar. However, this question did not make Yang Chen puzzled for long, and he immediately saw the answer. A whole mountain peak, hundreds of feet away from the battle group of several people, suddenly flew up from the ground. It was as if someone had uprooted it from the ground. The gigantic mountain peak brought along the shattered mountain rocks and scattered soil. It was as if Mount Tai was pressing down on them as it smashed down from the sky towards the three people who were fighting. Yang Chen saw clearly that under the mountain peak, there were countless intertwined thick roots. There was no need to ask, that was the roots of the old osmanthus tree monster. The old tree demon actually used the power of his roots to directly uproot a mountain and then smashed it towards the battle. The three of them did not expect such a turn of events at all. By the time they discovered that the mountain was already above their heads, it was already too late to dodge. They could only use their own methods to resist the pressure of Mount Tai. Boom! A huge sound rang out. Suddenly, a mountain peak appeared where the three of them were fighting, forming a new small mountain. Xianxia wasn't worried that Shikue and Xianxia would suffer any injuries. Both of them were earth-attributed demon beasts. So, they would be safe and sound even if a mountain peak that was 100 times higher than this one came crashing down. Especially after they had refined the fifth earth true essence. On the other hand, Scar wasn't feeling so good. Before the array flag could be retrieved, it was smashed into smithereens. Just as he used the earth escape technique, he suddenly discovered that the surrounding rocks were actually filled with countless tough roots that resembled underground dragons, surrounding his shelter. Even if Nanmingli fire was sacrificed, those roots didn't seem to care at all and slowly shrank. After a while, Scar's shelter space was getting smaller and smaller. Finally, there was only enough space for him to stand, and he couldn't move. The Nanmingli fire burned the tree roots, but the tree roots secreted a special juice. No matter how the fire burned, the tree roots remained intact. At this point, Knife Scar understood that he had encountered a powerful master, and could only give up struggling in vain. He honestly let the roots entangle him, and took him out of the bottom of the mountain and sent him to Yangqin. Shikue and Xianxia had returned to their human forms and were standing beside Yangqin, looking at all this in doubt. Yangqin explained it clearly in one sentence: I met a senior of the demon clan. Since the old tree demon had already made his move, Shikue and Xianxia soon discovered the body of the old tree demon. Plants sometimes lived much longer than animals. With the cultivation of this osmanthus tree demon, even at their age, it was not too much to call him a senior. When did Chunyang Palace have such a powerful monster? Scar was sent to Yangqin. His body was entangled with roots, but he was not unconscious. Except that he couldn't move, his speech and consciousness were very casual. At this moment, he had no intention of fighting, but he asked in confusion. Someone saw you chasing my master and hitting her hard. What do you say? Yangqin asked sharply. The spider said that Scar had hit his master once. Even if Scar had a story, Yangqin would not let him go easily. If I hadn't sent her far away with that blow, she would have fallen into the hands of the young master and been humiliated to death. Scar still did not give in at this point. He just snorted coldly, but although the tone was tough, the content of the words was already an explanation. Yangqin believed this. With Scar's cultivation base, Shikue, Xianxia and Wan Qian, the three masters of the Yuaning stage, if he wanted to kill Gao Yu, it was simply a matter of stretching his fingers. Even if he wanted to capture her, he was afraid that it would be the same. There was no need to pretend to be mediocre and let her go. In this way, Scar still saved Gao Yu's life. After Yangqin waited, he sent a thought to the old osmanthus tree demon, Senior, please let him go. Aren't you afraid that he will do it immediately after he lets go? The old osmanthus tree demon replied with a smile. Yangqin's heart moved, and he sent an invitation to the old osmanthus tree demon. This younger generation junior has an excellent place for discussion. Is the senior interested in listening together? It doesn't matter, where is it? The old tree demon was bold, and he was not afraid of what Yangqin would do, so he agreed directly. Yangqin opened the dome hall and enveloped everyone in it. The body of the old tree demon also entered directly. Everyone, don't move around to avoid being attacked. Yangqin reminded. In fact, there was no need for Yangqin to remind them. The 49 best flying swords flying high above their heads had alerted everyone. Wan Qian and her apprentices came here as if they were going home. Without saying anything, they sat on the ground and began to cultivate, regardless of anything. Shikue and Xianxia also entered the dome hall for the first time. They were very curious and looked around, but no one moved under their feet. The old tree demon had directly released the roots that wrapped around Scar. In just a moment, he turned into a little man with hands and feet, but he was still heavy in the shape of a big tree, and he looked around curiously. Obviously, after such a short time, his transformation secret art had already reached a small success. Your master was ordered by the young master of Howie Villa to kill him, not only for the money, but also for the person. Scar seemed to have no intention of doing it again. He stood in the same place, looked at Yangqin, and said directly, If you want to touch Howie Villa, I can help you. Chapter 306. I will definitely eradicate Howie Villa, but you are the #1 fighter of the young master. Why? Yang Chen was not a person who was easy to deceive. Knife Scar actually said such a thing. If there was no reasonable reason, Yang Chen did not mind killing him on the spot. I have a grudge against Howie Villa. I sneaked into Howie Villa to destroy Howie Villa one day. Knife Scar didn't hesitate to state his reason. I'm afraid that the old thief recognized my appearance and disfigured himself. He hid his cultivation and became his son's henchman, causing trouble everywhere for him. I just want to attract experts to come and take revenge. These words were somewhat reasonable. Before, Yang Chen had already heard about the behavior of the group of people from Howie Villa from various channels. Almost everyone in the Magic Flame Valley knew that they would rob, kill, and kill people. At first, Yang Chen thought that the young master of Howie Villa was arrogant, so he spread his notoriety. After listening to Knife Scar's words, it seemed that Knife Scar was adding fuel to the fire. Thinking of the matter of Knife Scar letting his master Gao Yu go at the critical moment of life and death, Yang Chen seemed to understand that Knife Scar deliberately exposed his own characteristics and then let people go at the critical moment. After that, there would always be people coming to the door. This was Knife Scar's plan. Your cultivation base is almost at the peak Yuanying stage. Can't you avenge the destruction of Howie Villa directly? Yang Chen asked strangely. I don't seem to have heard of any master of the Deshang stage coming from Howie Villa. You don't know. Knife Scar seemed to have determined that Yang Chen's cultivation base was the lowest, but he was the person in charge here. He had been facing Yang Chen and explained, the master of Howie Villa has 4 brothers. They are all masters of the peak Yuanying stage. I am not afraid of anyone in a one-on-one fight, but they have a kind of combination formation that is very powerful. That is the demon subduing 4 symbols formation passed down by the ancestors of Howie Villa. The 4 brothers together are enough to match a master of the Deshang stage. Dao Ba gave a series of explanations, not concealing anything at all. I've tried it once. Under the joint attack of their array formation, I could only hold on for less than the time it takes for a stick of incense to burn. If I hadn't escaped quickly, I would have died in the array. So you want to use their young master's bad reputation to attract experts to seek revenge? Yang Chen was very confused about this. He asked again, you must have done this more than once or twice. Why are the people of Howie Manor still alive? Although that young master is a playboy, he's not brainless. Dao Ba was a bit discouraged as he said, every time I make a move, I will find out whether the opponent has a powerful backer or not. Otherwise, I won't easily make a move. This time, I was responsible for investigating your master. I knew that she was from Chunyang Palace, so I hid it and led you here. When he spoke up to here, a dazzling light suddenly appeared in Scar's eyes. If you can help me eliminate Howie Manor and help me take revenge, Scar, am willing to give up my life to repay you. Scar could already see that although Shikue and Xianxia were slightly weaker than him, the 2 demonic beast bodies were so strong that even his Nanmingli fire couldn't do anything to them. The old tree demon who captured him was even more terrifying. He subdued him with a simple move. If the old tree demon took action, he would definitely be able to kill the 4 masters of Howie Manor. Even without the old tree demon, the domed hall that he was in right now was also an impressive sword array. The 49 flying swords were all of the immortal grade. One could imagine the powerful attack power of the sword array. There was hope for this move to settle the hatred of so many years. Scar even couldn't wait. He had sacrificed himself to take revenge, suffered humiliation, and had to listen to the young master's orders. He couldn't bear it anymore. Now that the opportunity was right in front of him, he was eager to seize it. Although you let my master go, her previous injuries are also related to you. Yang Chen stared at Scar's eyes and said fiercely, what should we do about that? As long as you help me take revenge, when Howie Manor disappears, I will compensate your master with my life. Scar's hatred had obviously filled his entire life. Revenge was his only goal in life. As for what would happen in the future, he probably didn't think much about it. Scar's situation reminded Yang Chen of himself. In his previous life, he was the same as Dao Ba, living to take revenge. Even in this life, he still hadn't let go of this thought. However, God gave him a chance to start over. Apart from revenge, Yang Chen also wanted to make his master's life better. Yang Chen could understand this kind of feeling. After pondering for a moment, Yang Chen made a decision. Even if you don't say it, I will still kill my way to Howie Manor. This is not to take revenge for you, but for my master. When Scar heard this, he immediately revealed a happy expression. When he was about to speak, he was stopped by Yang Chen. However, since you hurt my master, I want you to come to my master, kowtow and apologize, and do 3 things for my master. Can you do it? This was simply an unexpected surprise. How could Scar not agree? He nodded repeatedly and was so excited that he almost couldn't say anything. He rubbed his fists and was about to leave immediately, but he still remembered what Yang Chen said. He couldn't move easily here, so he stood firmly on the spot, but the expression on his face was already extremely anxious. Yang Chen turned to the old Cassia Tree Demon and said to the old Cassia Tree Demon, who was slowly changing, "Senior, this younger generation junior wants to ask the senior to help me. After the matter is done, this younger generation junior will give you a wood clone's secret art." Clone technique? The old tree demon's transformation technique was very fast. After a while, he could already speak, but his words were a little stiff. What is that? Wood elemental demonic beasts like Senior can take root in a safe place, and their clones can move freely. Yang Chen simply replied, "As long as the body is not destroyed, even if the clone is killed, it will not hurt you." The old tree demon immediately realized the power of Yang Chen's clone technique. Without thinking about it, he nodded directly. "Deal. When do we start?" "Senior, please wait a moment." Yang Chen dealt with the old tree demon and turned to face Scar. Hearing that Yang Chen had gotten the support of the old tree demon, Scar was overjoyed. When Yang Chen faced him, Scar's surprised expression was overflowing. "Scar, if I teach you a method that can help you break the 4 symbols demon subduing formation alone and kill the enemy by yourself." Yang Chen almost said it in a tempting tone. "However, after the matter is done, I want you to have a wisp of the Nanmingli fire. Are you willing to?" "Deal." How could Scar not be willing? When he heard Yang Chen's words, he almost jumped up in surprise. He clenched his fists and cracked them, showing his excitement. Chapter 307. Howie Villa was huge and had a radius of a few hundred acres. Including servants and guards, there were almost a few thousand people. In the middle of the night, a few figures suddenly appeared about 10 miles away from Howie Villa. "Senior, can you cover the entire villa?" Yang Chen looked at Howie Villa, which was obviously protected by a formation, and asked the old osmanthus tree demon beside him. "It's just a few hundred acres. If I spread my roots, a bigger villa can also cover it." The old tree demon looked like an old man with a long beard. He wore mottled clothes and looked like a destitute old man. As the old tree demon spoke, his feet seemed to suddenly step on the ground. Then Yang Chen and the rest felt a crazy movement underground. After a while, the old tree demon still stood at the same spot and smiled. "All right, I can guarantee that no one can escape. You guys can do it." The old tree demon had lived for many years. Even Yang Chen couldn't judge the depth of his cultivation. However, Yang Chen never doubted the old tree demon's words. "Knife Scar, there are grievances and grievances. Take revenge. I don't care about the others, but you can't touch one person." Yang Chen instructed Knife Scar and specially reminded him, "The young master who plotted against my master is mine." Knife Scar, who had been holding back for a long time, suddenly released a blood-red light from his eyes. The Nanmingli fire armor on his body suddenly shone brightly. 8 flaming long swords began to circle around him. He shouted at Howie Villa in the distance, then his body turned into a stream of light and rushed in. Behind Yang Chen, Shikue and Xianxia were also looking forward to it. When Yang Chen came, he said that he would bring them to kill people. They didn't feel good after not releasing their killing intent for a long time. Martial granduncles, There are no innocent people in Howie Villa. You can kill them at will. Yang Chen had already understood that there were no innocent people in Howie Villa. Yang Chen did not feel any pressure at all. However, young master cannot snatch it from me. Shi Kuei and Xianxia laughed heartily and reverted to their original forms. Then, they quickly rushed towards the manor from two different directions. Not long after, waves of screams came from within the villa. There were already countless panicked cries for help. A few of them quickly fled Howie Manor on their flying swords. However, before they could fly for more than a kilometer, they were caught by a huge root that came out of nowhere and thrown back into the manor. Yang Chen looked coldly at everything that was happening in front of him. Suddenly, he said loudly, "Every injustice has its perpetrator, and every debt has its debtor. Young master, how dare you plot to kill my master? Today, I will take your worthless life." With that, Yang Chen strode towards the gate of the villa, not caring whether the people inside heard him or not. After taking a few steps, several blood-colored branches sprouted from his body. Under the illumination of the distant flames, he looked like a monster covered in tentacles. There were many people in the villa, and there were many masters. Soon, Yang Chen heard the sound of fighting. However, it was mainly concentrated in the central area, and from a distance he could see the Nanmingli fire sword shining in the air. It seemed that Knife Scar had already fought with the four masters. Behind Yang Chen, the figures of the 5 women suddenly appeared and directly rushed in the direction of the manor. Yang Chen himself stood on the avenue at the main entrance of the villa, quietly waiting for someone to fall into the trap. He could not escape in the air, and there were powerful enemies in the other 3 directions. Only Yang Chen was standing at the front door. There were always people who wanted to escape from Yang Chen. In Howie Villa, there were no other Yuanying stage masters except for the 4 masters. Yang Chen and the Blood Phantom Vine were enough to deal with the rest. What's more, there was a Yuanying stage master, Wan Qian, who was hiding in the dome and ready to attack at any time. Wan Qian only knew how to obey orders, but she could not take the initiative to judge anything. Yang Chen was afraid that Wan Qian would kill the young master, so he did not send her out, but just guarded here. The people who escaped from the front door could not get past Yang Chen at all. Even before they could see Yang Chen's face clearly, they had been knocked out by the poisonous mist released by the Blood Phantom Vine, and then they were dragged by the vines on the ground to Yang Chen at night. As long as it was not the young master Yang Chen was looking for, Yang Chen was always very easy to use those people as nourishment for the Blood Phantom Vine. In less than half an hour, there were already hundreds of people who died in front of Yang Chen. Finally, the terrifying killing in the villa made everyone feel fear, and a group of people rushed out of the main entrance with more than a dozen figures. "Protect the madam, protect the young master." Several obvious henchmen, distributed around a few men and women in the middle, rushed out. Seeing the figure of Yang Chen from a distance, several guys immediately rushed up. Hearing the words, "Madam," and "Young Master," Yang Chen's face immediately showed a smile. After waiting for a long time, waiting for this young master, he finally fell into the hands of Yang Chen. "Kill him." Seeing Yang Chen standing in the middle of the road blocking the way out, the young master was furious and shouted at his guards. There were powerful enemies in several directions in the villa, and he didn't know where these enemies came from. What shocked the young master was that one of them was actually his #1 lackey, Dao Ba. He didn't know how Dao Ba hid his strength, but he actually had the strength of the nascent soul stage, and was evenly matched with his father and 3 uncles. The master of the villa had noticed that something was wrong, and in the fight with Scar, he sent a message to let them escape. There was an emergency secret passage in the villa, but the moment they entered, they found that the secret passage had been destroyed. They wanted to use the earth escape technique, but they were always blocked by something. As for the wood escape technique, it would be strange if someone could escape from the old tree demon. Other than running out normally, there was no other way. The furious young manor master had just shouted that he would kill him when he suddenly discovered to his shock that his bodyguard, who seemed to be very good at bullying others, was so weak that he could not even withstand a single blow in front of the figure who was standing there. A few of them had just rushed up, but it was as if they were swept up by some monster, and then they screamed crazily and turned into dried corpses. Such a horrifying scene made the young master's heart break. Just as he was about to retreat, he heard Yang Chen's terrifying voice, which contained the joy of discovering an enemy. "Young master, since you've come out, don't think about going back." "Who are you?" The young master was almost crying. "What grudge do you have with Howie Villa that you have to do this?" Chapter 308. Even a fool could see at this moment that Yang Chen was blocking the main entrance, and it was obvious that he was the person in charge. The young master had never seen Yang Chen, let alone offended him. There was no grievance or hatred between them. Why would Yang Chen come to kill him? "Young master, you are really forgetful." Yang Chen smiled. 2 months ago, didn't young master send someone to attack a gold core female cultivator? He also robbed her of the red sun iron soul. Young master forgot it so quickly? Presumably, young master is used to killing people and robbing them, right? "Who is that woman to you?" The young master was shocked and understood that he had kicked an iron plate. But how did he know that the gold core female cultivator would have such a terrible background as Yang Chen? "She is my master." Yang Chen seemed to want to let the young master die, and said slowly, "How is it possible?" The young master shouted like a madman, "She is not your opponent at all. How could she be your master?" "Why is it impossible?" Yang Chen smiled slightly, took back the blood phantom vine, and faced the young master and his party alone. Without the blood phantom vine, everyone could immediately detect Yang Chen's cultivation. However, the results surprised everyone. Early stage of foundation establishment, how was it possible? Which of the guards who had just rushed out was not a gold core master? Just when everyone was stunned, a woman behind the young master suddenly shouted, and a flying sword went straight to Yang Chen. Ding, a clear sound. The flying sword was blocked by another flying sword from nowhere. Then, a masked figure appeared behind Yang Chen, like a swift cheetah, and rushed to the crowd on the young master's side. The woman who had just attacked was grabbed by the throat by the masked woman, and then flew high. Her neck was broken in the air, and her head was separated from her body. The sound of heads and bodies hitting the ground made everyone shiver in fear. After doing all this, the ferocious masked woman rushed back behind Yang Chen and disappeared in an instant, as if she had never appeared. The young master's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. A junior in the early stage of the foundation establishment realm actually had so many powerful bodyguards by his side. Any one of them seemed to be at the nascent soul stage. How could he not feel regret? What kind of deity did he provoke? I am willing to compensate for your loss. I will return that crimson sun iron soul to you." The young manor master's voice trembled. He took out a large pile of items from his cosmos sack as if he had gone crazy. These are all for you. Let me go, let me go." What he could not deny was that the young manor master had taken out quite a lot of good stuff from his cosmos sack. At least, with just a glance, Yang Chen could see a few materials that were not inferior to the flaming sun metal soul. However, could this make Yang Chen's anger disappear? Looking at those things contemptuously, Yang Chen's face showed a sarcastic smile. "If I kill you, these things are not mine. You haven't killed me after such a long time. You must want to keep me alive." Although the young manor master's voice was still filled with panic, he seemed to have found something to rely on. He hurriedly tried to curry favor with him. "What do you want? Tell me. As long as I can take it out, I will give it to you. I will tell you everything you want to know. Don't kill me." "Smart." A smile appeared on Yang Chen's face and he praised him. "You actually know what I want from you by keeping you alive. Tell me, tell me." The young manor master immediately revealed a happy expression. "As long as you ask, I will give you everything I have. Actually, I don't need anything from you." Yang Chen shook his head calmly and continued, "You can't give me what I need." "Then why don't you do it?" The young manor master revealed a fearful expression again. He sounded like he was about to cry again. "You must have a purpose. You must have a purpose. Tell me. The reason why I am not doing it now." Yang Chen stared at the frightened men and women and said quietly, "I just want you to see the destruction of Howie Manor before you die." The young manor master, who heard Yang Chen's words, felt his legs go soft and he sat on the ground. The women behind him also began to cry. The massacre in Howie Manor seemed to be coming to an end. There were very few screams. The loudest sound was the battle between Knife Scar and the 4 manor masters. Amidst the rumbling sounds, 100 acres of land inside Howie Manor had been flattened. Impossible! The young manor master shouted loudly. My father and several uncles joined hands to form the 4 symbols demon subduing formation. Even if a Mahayana stage expert came, he would not be able to deal with it. It is impossible for him to destroy Howie Manor. Once my father and the rest kill your people, you will not be able to escape. Even though he knew that Yang Chen wanted to kill him, the young manor master unleashed a powerful aura and threatened Yang Chen instead. Let us go now and I can make the decision to pretend that nothing happened. Otherwise, we will all perish together. My father and the rest will not let you go. You and the people behind you will all die. As if he was making a prophecy, the 5 people fighting in the center of Howie Manor had already come to an end when the young manor master finished speaking. Amidst the violent rumbling sounds, a blinding light flickered continuously. Then, with a wave of flaming swords, a few figures were thrown out and landed not far away from the crowd. There were 4 figures in total. All of them were charred black and started to disintegrate the moment they touched the ground. By the time they landed on the ground, they had already turned into pieces of meat. However, the young manor master and the women behind him screamed when they saw the familiar figures. Then they started to cry loudly. It was clearly the bodies of the 4 manor masters, but they had been cut into pieces. Knife Scar's figure appeared immediately after. When he saw the people in front of Yang Chen, he laughed and said, "There are still survivors. Go to hell." He rushed over directly. Before the young manor master turned around, he heard a series of screams. When he turned around, he saw a ground full of corpses. Finally, Knife Scar remembered that the young manor master belonged to Yang Chen, so he didn't touch him. As soon as these people died, there were no other voices in Howie Manor. After a while, Shikue, Xianxia, and the 5 women surrounded them from several directions. Shikue showed a satisfied expression as he walked, and so did Xianxia on the opposite side. Every injustice has its perpetrator, and every debt has its debtor. Yang Chen took a few steps forward and walked in front of the young manor master. Young manor master, if you dare to touch my master, you will die 100 times. Go to hell. After that, the flying sword in his hand flashed, and the head of the young manor master flew directly. Then, Yang Chen grabbed the hairbun with one hand and held it in his hand. Blood was still dripping from the neck of the severed head. Welcome to Legends of Cultivation, audiobooks, where we bring ancient fantasy to life through storytelling. Follow the rise of heroes who defy fate, unlock mystical powers, and battle across celestial realms. Our audiobooks are crafted for fans of Chinese cultivation novels, filled with battles, breakthroughs, and legendary artifacts. Subscribe and be part of an unforgettable journey into the realm of immortality.